Okay, so all mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience, may they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly I will establish them in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. All mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience, may they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly I will establish them in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. Dagla dangwa je pe dra no pa je pe ge. Tarpa dang tam she ken pe bar du jo par je pa tam she ki so je pe. Ma nam ka dam yam pe sem chen tam she de wa dang den. Dog now dang drel nor du la na me pa yang dag pa zog pe zhang zhu brin bo she to pa ja. Thus, until I achieve enlightenment, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Peshe du sang ma ge gi bar du lu na gi sam ge wa la ko. Ma she bar du lu na gi sam ge wa la ko. Du de ring ne song te ni ma sang ta sam gi bar du lu na gi sam ge wa la ko. Long Refuge Prayer. We take refuge in the kind root and lineage lamas. We take refuge in the deities of the mandalas of the yidams. We take refuge in all the exalted Buddhas. We take refuge in the perfect Dharma. We take refuge in the excellent order of the Sanghas. We take refuge in all the noble Dakas, Dakinis, and Dharma guardians, possessors of the eye of wisdom. We take refuge in the kind root and lineage lamas. We take refuge in the deities and the mandalas of the yidams. We take refuge in all the exalted Buddhas. We take refuge in the perfect Dharma. We take refuge in the excellent order of the Sanghas. We take refuge in all the noble Dakas, Dakinis, and Dharma guardians, possessors of the eye of wisdom. Dren sa wa danger par je pe pao dan la ma dam pa nam la kyab su chi o. Yedam kil gorgi la sok nam la kyab su chi o. Sangye chom den de nam la kyab su chi o. Dam pe cho nam la kyab su chi o. Pa pe ge du nam la kyab su chi o. Pa wo ka jo cho kyung song me song yeshe gi chang dang dem pa nam la kyab su chi o. Until I attain the heart of enlightenment, I take refuge in all the Buddhas. I take refuge in the Dharma, and likewise in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. As the previous Buddhas embraced the enlightened mind and progressed on the Bodhisattva's path, I too, for the benefit of all sentient beings, give birth to Bodhicitta and apply myself to accomplish the stages of the path. Until I attain the heart of enlightenment, I take refuge in all the Buddhas. I take refuge in the Dharma, and likewise in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. As the previous Buddhas embraced the enlightened mind and progressed on the Bodhisattva's path, I too, for the benefit of all sentient beings, give birth to Bodhicitta and apply myself to accomplish the stages of the path. Shangzhu Ning Po Chi Ki Bar Sangye Nam La Kyab Su Chi Chodang Shangshu Senpa Yi So Klang De Shin Kyab Su Chi Jitar Nongi De Shegi Shangshu Tukni Ki Padang Shangshu Sampe La Pala De Dagrim Shin E Patar De Shin Dro La Pendandu Shangshu Semni Ki Gishin De Shin Du Ni La Pala Rimpa Shindu La Pa Chi O. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. Sangye Chodang Soki Chonam La Shangshu Bardu Dagni Kapsu Chi Dagi Jin Soki Pe Sonamgi Jola Penshir Sangye Jupasho. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. Manam kadam yam pesam chantam she Deva dang dewe gurdang dempar jorchik. Dug now dang dunau gi gu dang dra war jorchik. Dug now me pe Deva dang mi dra war jorchik. Nay ring chak dang ni dang dra wei dang nam la ne pa jorchi. And please turn to page 12 in the 101 prayer book, the Sagarimati Requested Sutra. Likewise, be extinguished. Extinguish all enemies to my purpose. Whatever evil forces are in me, be defeated. Do this so that when I am victorious, all pure radiance melts into me, completely purified. Take all this knowledge, food, and drink peacefully, enjoy it, and be satisfied so that all obstacles may be destroyed. Be liberated from all obstacles, all general obstacles. Maras are defeated by this gesture of the Buddha. By reciting this mantra, may all the Maras be purified. As a result, may all the Maras be defeated. Thank you very much. Happy Easter again. This is always my favorite of the holidays. And may we all rise up. You know, this is symbolic of the death and the rebirth. So whatever tradition you follow, Christian, Judaism, Hinduism, Islam, Buddhism, Taoism, whatever, there's a death and there's a rebirth over and over and over again. So this is the rebirth. So does anybody have any questions or comments about anything that we've talked about last week or any other time, or something that you'd like to talk about? Okay. Well, I'll remind you that everybody can just turn on their microphone and start talking, and bring up whatever you want, raise your hand, whatever. So we can do that. So there's a number of things that I want to go back over from last week. And so what we're doing is we're recognizing ourselves as human beings. And human beings are unique to this planet. You know, there's many other planets, there's many other places, there's many other forms that we don't recognize. All we have is our humanness. So with that, we can realize that there is this nature within ourselves, this true nature that speaks another language altogether. And we can experience that language. And we do that by quieting our human nature. Quieting our human nature, then what arises is that language that is, for lack of a better word, this universal kind of language. And all this falls within what we might call love. People who have experienced this, who have experienced deep, deep, deep meditation, and come back into their ordinary bodies, so to speak, the one thing that they all say is, oh, I know it's love. So to be able to understand that, what that means, we have to go through the process of understanding who we are as human beings, because that's what's standing in between ourselves and that love. So once we're able to do that, then we experience the pure love, and we maintain that pure love within us. And it's way beyond the love that we have for our families. It's way beyond the love that we have for our friends and the world, our being, our own self. So that's why we say it has to be experienced, because there's no words, there's no intellectual, vicarious experience that we can transmit that is going to help us to be able to really experience that ourselves. All we can do is lead through the system of what it is to be able to get there. So Buddhism, as we've said before, is very articulate in being able to do that. So there is this first part of remembering why we're doing this. So these opening prayers are there as remembrances to help us to recall why we are doing this. And the heartfelt meaning of these prayers needs to be really recognized within ourselves. that we're doing this for the benefit of others, and that we will continue to do this for the benefit of others over and over and over again. No matter what obstacles stand in our way, we'll continue to do it for the benefit of others. Doing it for the benefit of others keeps ourselves pure. Because one of the things that we have problems with is all the obscurations, all the blockages, all the confusions, all the corruptions that come into our intellectual mind. And those corruptions, they kind of take over. They want to take over the body. They start affecting our body. And they consume all our time. And they make us think that this is the only thing. And we lose sight of that spirituality. So we need to remember that process. So these opening prayers are there to do that. These prayers are very important. So the first part of learning a practice or developing a practice is memorizing these prayers, and we memorize them by doing them over and over and over again. But being committed to being able to remember that this is what we want to do. The second part is the contemplation, contemplating all these different practices, all these different things that we talk about, all this different in Buddhism, all this doctrine and so on like that. And it's there to help us to focus our mind they're the tracks that take us to our realizing our true nature, who we really are and so on. So we have to contemplate all this stuff, until we get to the point where we have exhausted that contemplation. We've thought about it as much as we can, and now it's just a matter of letting it rest and just recognizing that which is around us as all being part of this spiritual experience. Seeing the spirituality in everything that we do, everything we see, everything we think, that we are spiritual beings, whether we realize it or not. But now comes the point of we want to recognize that. We want to be spiritual beings. So we do that through the resting our human nature. And what comes up is our true nature, that true nature of being what we call a spiritual being, that holiness, that sacredness. So all these different traditions, Christianity, Judaism, Hinduism, Islam, all these different traditions are all speaking about the same thing. So today is a special day because of the symbology of the Christianity, but that we're all Christians, we're all Buddhists, we're all Jews, we're all Hindus, we're all Muslim, we're all these things. Just a matter of recognizing it in those terms. Because the essence of all those different traditions is the same. Talking about this spirituality, this indestructible spirituality that we have that runs through us. We use the analogy of this vibration that we are permeated, that we are penetrated, that we are hung on this vibration that is going through all beings. It's like the drum beat that keeps our heart beating. We're all beating, it's all beating with the same rhythm. So when we focus, when we develop this one-pointed mindfulness, we're all coming together into that vibration. So we want to harmonize with it. We don't want to be disharmony. We don't want to create, an unpleasant sound in the midst of that beautiful song, that beautiful harmony that is going. So today we're going to continue talking about the 6 realms, so we can understand more about what it is to be a human being. And then in the second part, after we take our break, we're going to start developing the stages of meditation by understanding a little bit about what it means, but then actually practicing some meditation. Okay, so I'm going to screen share this. Okay, so going back to the illustrations that we were using just to get our mind back on track about what we've been talking about is this center of the wheel. We talked about the wheel of existence, this wheel of samsara. And in the center is this hub. And it's around this hub that this wheel is turning, 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 turning. This hub is like the engine. And the engine of this is our hatred, is our desire, and our ignorance. So it's through that this keeps manifesting, keeps manifesting, keeps manifesting. If we want to stop this manifestation of this wheel, then we have to stop the engine. We have to cut through. We have to stop the ignorance. We have to stop the desire. We have to stop the hatred. And then the other two poisons that we talk about, the jealousy and the greed, they're part of this as well. So in order to stop this, we need to understand how it is manifest so that we can do that. And we do it in our meditations. So, in desire, there's a point here about desire. And desire, we can desire good things. We can have aspiration for good things. So that's a positive side of the desire. That's a very good thing. However, with ignorance, if we don't recognize the nature of ignorance, of how confused we can be, then none of this takes place. We don't recognize any of this. So we have to wake up that ignorance to be able to become aware that there are these things that are happening within ourselves and around ourselves. So this desire then is to be able to help beings, to want to help ourselves, to want to break out of this. The hatred is very, very powerful because one negative thing, one hateful thing can ruin, can destroy all the positive aspiration that we had to be able to overcome our ignorance. So hatred is very, very strong, very powerful. And we need to be able to always be looking out for hatred and anger. It can be very innocent. We can just be doing something at home. I know myself, I get angry about, my computer or something like that. I've got this mindset, I want to do something. And then before I know it, it's not working. And then I get angry and then, I want to hit it. I want to do something, I always would say, I don't keep a baseball bat anywhere near my computer, because I feel like I want to take that baseball bat and just whack it. But, if I did that, my goodness, so much stuff would be destroyed. But the most of what will be destroyed would be my peace of mind, because that would stay with me for hours and hours and days and weeks and weeks. I still can think about, things that I did years ago out of anger, that I can resurrect that kind of feeling within myself. And we need to be able to control that. We need to see that it's a natural part of being a human being for that to be there. But we have to leave it as a human being and not let it control us to be able to understand our true nature, because our true nature is beyond that. If there's a problem with true nature, it is that it's very, very subtle to recognize and to stabilize. So what does that mean? It means that it's easily suppressed. Our true nature is very easy to be suppressed. So we need to be able to give it a lot of space. We need to give it a lot of room. We need to give it a lot of mindfulness to recognize that it's there. And the more that we do that, the more stable it becomes. The more stable it becomes within ourselves, the more spacious we become, and the more free we become. In other words, we're not thinking about a lot of things. We're just relaxed. We're at peace. We don't have this churning mind all the time, this monkey mind that we talk about. We've learned how to control that monkey mind. So this is important to recognize, that it's perfectly natural, it's perfectly normal for us to have all these feelings, but our true nature is to be free of these feelings, of these confusions, to be a peaceful person, a quiet person. The meditation leads us to that quietude. So this engine then is through the recognition of how this is operating, taking responsibility for it, and then going through the process of turning off the ignition, the ignition of the turning of the wheel. So how we do this is this outer wheel here, this ring here, and the ring is of sacredness, of holiness, of positive behavior, virtue, comfort, joy, all these positive things. So if we are bringing those into our life and we're stabilizing those things in our life, is a good thing. That's what we need to be able to do. And when we recognize the dark things, the things that are pulling us down, the things that are making us angry, the things that are causing our desires and our lust, and the things that are causing our ignorance, etc., and so on, we need to recognize those and cut them off as quickly as we can. So we need to be aware of the positive coming up, and we need to stabilize that. What do I need to do to stabilize my virtue? What do I need to do to recognize my non-virtue, and how do I stop it? So this is all part of the contemplation. Okay. So we talked about last week, we talked about the Deva realm. We talked about the God, the Deva, the God realm. And this isn't, we got to understand that this isn't the God that we think of as being a supreme being, the creator God. We're not talking about that here. We're talking about human beings who think that they have such wisdom, such luxury, such pleasure, that they don't pay attention to the suffering of other beings. They may be able to help other beings, but they're so enamored with their own adoration of who they are that they don't have time. They're not paying attention. They don't want to recognize suffering of other beings. They have no suffering of their own that they recognize. What happens with them is that at some point, others turn away from them. And when they do, they feel totally despondent, and they fall. It's the falling of the angels, if you will. It's the falling of the God, the Devas, from their high place into their depths, And what causes this is our own recognition of our own failures. We're the ones, this is our story. we're the ones who, when we recognize we're not as good as we thought we were, that we fall and we start thinking about all the negativities, all the things that we could have prevented, all the things that we could have done better, and so on. And we may go through these periods of misery thinking about all this stuff that we wish we could have done better. And so what we need to be able to do is to be able to take the pridefulness that gave us this sense of being a Deva, the sense of being a God, this being a holy being. We need to be able to take that, and we need to be able to share that. We need to have compassion for other beings. We need to be able to show our vulnerabilities for the sake of others. This is how we meet together with ourselves and with other beings, to realize who we are as human beings, that our godliness, that which we think that is holy and so on, is very vulnerable, and we need to be able to control it by sharing, by opening ourselves up, by recognizing compassion. So if you have a way within your own life that you demonstrate this, how do you demonstrate your compassion? Do you writing what you think, what your emotions, and you want to share this with other people? Do you get it out, and say, here, please read this poem I just wrote. Please read this paragraph I just wrote, or this story I just wrote, or something like that, by sharing with other people. Do you play music? Do you sing songs? Do you play instruments or something like that? Are you trying to communicate that love and that compassion through your music, through your instrument, playing that music for other beings as well as yourself? Are you an artist? Do you draw, or do you do? There's many different art forms. There's too many for me to mention here, but you can understand those who have a simple pencil in one hand and they got a blank piece of paper in the other hand, and they start drawing images to convey their inner thoughts and so on, their inner emotions, to be able to get them out so they can recognize them for themselves, but also they want to share them with other people. Say, this is how I have developed. This is my story. I want to be able to share it with you. So by doing this is how we are revealing ourselves as being a human being, but being a human being who has a wisdom, a human being who has a compassion. So this is what is being characterized in the Deva realm. In the next realm we talked about a little bit last week was the Demi-god realm, or the realm of the Titans. And these beings here are very, very, very powerful beings. They're very capable beings. They are our heroes in many ways. They can be sports stars, they can be military people, they can be business people, they can be all different kinds of people that we look to and we support because they are so charismatic. They have such a power that the words that they say, their stature and so on, just this speaks to this power that they have. And we'd like to be them. But, we may not feel that we can be them, but through our support of them and everything, that some of it's going to rub off, that, we're going to be part of their group. We're going to be supporters of these great leaders and so on, and we'll do magnificent things to show that support. We'll go to war against other people. We'll give them money. All our money, our savings, we'll give that to them because they're promising us a better day if we support them in this way. And so we do all these things in order to support these, but their ability to be able to convince us to do all this is based on their own selfish aggrandizement. Their purpose is for themselves, and they're in total conflict with themselves and with all the others around them, because they're always trying to get what other people have. And they want to protect that which they have already. So they're characterized as being these very militaristic. They're in a battle. They're fighting against each other to get what they want, and they're also trying to fight against the gods, the Devas, because these demigods, these jealous gods, they want what the Devas have, because the Devas appear to have this very, very, very long life and this great luxurious, pleasant peace. And the Devas, the demigods want that. They think if they have all this power, if they have all these means and so on, then they will transcend to the level of being the god, and then they won't have to do that anymore. But they're caught in the conflict all the time. They're constantly churning and so on like that. So we go through this. We may see it within ourselves. We definitely can see it with other people. We can see, how these great leaders and so on are seducing their followers with these empty promises of being able to give them what they want and so on. But it never comes to a point of satisfaction. It's always churning. It's always in a state of conflict. So what we have to do, each of us individually, who recognize ourselves as being these titans, as being these jealous gods, these beings of great skillful means, is we have to learn how to protect ourselves. We have to hold up a shield against the conflicts that the other jealous gods, the other beings, are waging towards us. We have to protect ourselves from that in order to be able to give ourselves some temporary peace of mind, to be able to then be able to understand what our next move is going to be. What are we going to do next as a human being? And the next thing is going to be that in the hand of ourselves, we have a sword of a flaming sword of wisdom that cuts through the confusion and the ignorance and the conflict, the hatred that is being demonstrated by these demigods. So we need to protect ourselves with the shield, but then we need to be able to cut through that dualistic, that warlike attitude, to be able to cut through that with wisdom. So in each of these two realms, and all the other realms as well, this is the story of being a human being. And within each of these realms is a Buddha. And the Buddha is characterized with these abilities to be able to recognize oneself. So in the Deva realm, I said it was someone who was a musician, or an artist, or a writer, someone who is being able to show and share the compassion that for ourselves, to be able to show it for other beings. So the Buddha is playing a musical instrument. Here in the Deva realm and the demigod realm is a Buddha who is holding a shield and has a sword, and is cutting through that negativity, cutting through that confusion and so on. Where is the Buddha? The Buddha is within ourselves. It's being characterized in this artwork here so that we can recognize that. But we are the Buddha. This is what we're trying to recognize. This is what we're trying to awaken, is the Buddha within ourselves. So we're the ones who affect these changes. We're the one who makes this happen. We are the Buddha. And what we're coming to do is to recognize that.
Can I ask a question real quick, Lance?
Sure.
So is a way of thinking about it for me, so with the Deva and the demigod or time realm of like people or beings who've been very successful in their pursuit of like the eight worldly concerns, but that ultimately isn't satisfying them and then leads to some kind of downfall, or is that not quite a useful or accurate way of looking at it?
No, it is. And that's exactly what happens is we're consumed by the eight worldly concerns. If you all remember that was gain and loss, pleasure and pain, fame and disgrace, pleasure and pain. What did I say? Oh, gain and loss, pleasure and pain, fame and disgrace, and praise and blame. So we're consumed with that, yes. And then when we realize that it's all just illusory, it's just empty, then we can transcend, then we can become Buddha. That those things are what's holding us back. Did I lose the track of what you were saying, what your question was?
No, no, not at all. I'm just trying with everything we're doing and with this of like making sure to bring it back to my own experience and everything, so it's visceral for me. And
Yeah.
for me, if it becomes too overly, this is just for me, like religious, and it becomes kind of like abstract in a way where I almost lose touch of the fact like, oh, we're talking about my own mind and our own lives and everything.
Well, that's right. And that's exactly the point that I'm trying to make with this. And so we always have to look at when we have a thought, what's the point of view of that thought? Is the point of view of that thought as an ordinary human being, or is the point of view as a Buddha or as a Bodhisattva? A Bodhisattva is a human being who is on the path to become a Buddha. A Buddha is now beyond being a human being. It's like, I was thinking about this, we talked, I mentioned last week about the Superman. The Superman is the Bodhisattva, is a human being who has a great physical body, great intellectual body, and a great heart, a great spiritual body. That's the Superman, a super person who's got all these qualities and so on. But a supra man, S-U-P-R-A, supra is that leap that we take from being a superman to being a supraman. And of course, that includes women. I'm not being sexist about this. Women, being men and women is part of our dualistic nature, and we're all men and women. We're all masculine and feminine within ourselves, and so on. So we're just using these words as illustrative, but they're not to be sexist, that one is better than the other or anything like that. It's not like that. So that supra man would be a way of looking at that Buddha nature. That is, it took a human being to get to that point. It's a point of view. And the point of view is of total freedom. Now, how much total freedom can you as a human being experience? How much can you stabilize? That becomes the question. Do you want to be that free? So we come over to this part over here. This is the human realm here. So in the human realm, we are characterized as we are having all these choices. We have so many things that we can do. We have so many understandings that we can accomplish. And are we doing it at what level? What's our point of view? So here is a house. You can see this little house over here, or this building. And these are like our senses, but the senses are not, they're realizing things, they're seeing things, but they're not understanding that all this is just temporary. Here is a stream, here is water, and there's people in these boats that are navigating the water, and maybe they're trying to get to the other side. And here are different beings here. Here's someone who's playing a musical instrument, and here's other people that are receiving teachings. Here's somebody giving a teaching. Here's somebody who's on a horse who's wandering around and so on like that. And here's another being who is flying through the sky. So these are all different levels of human beings who are either caught in their physicality, they're caught in their intellectualism, or they're caught in their spirituality. And what we need to recognize is that we're all three of those things. We are all of those things. And to be a human being is the opportunity to be the hero. And to be the hero for our own benefit and for the benefit of others is what leads us to that purification, that leads us to the enlightenment, that leads us to being able to recognize that supra nature, that supra man. So to help us to recognize all this, that all this is the result of desire, that we want this, we are grasping this, we are grasping at a body, we are grasping in an intellect, we're grasping at all these things that we have and so on, this phenomenal nature, that we want this. Why? Because we can't deal with the freedom. We haven't been able to deal with the freedom. We talk about in the Bardo Todal, which the most popular translation of that is the Tibetan Book of the Dead. But the literal translation of the Bardo Todal is the great liberation in the intermediate state, the great liberation by hearing in the intermediate state. So this Bardo, this intermediate state, is that when we are liberated from the state, from the intermediate state, we're in this total freedom. And are we capable of remaining in that total freedom? Or are we constantly wanting to come back? We're grasping for another body. If we look at it from the idea of the ego wants identity. And it doesn't care what kind of identity it has. That's the crazy thing about the ego. It doesn't matter whether you're a very honored, great person who's recognized by many as being a wonderful human being, like say maybe a Deva, one of the gods, or maybe one of the Titans, one of the jealous gods, or it doesn't matter whether that, or that you are a miserable, low person, because the ego will attach to even that. Say, oh, I can't do these things. Oh, I'm not going to do that. No, I'd rather be in my misery. But you can learn. You can change. Oh no, I can't do that. I have such a sense of poor well-being. I'm not capable of doing that. The ego is doing that. The ego is tricking us into that. because the ego will hold on to anything that gives it a unique identity. It wants to be different than everybody else. So it will attach to its greatest things, its highest level things, most virtuous things, and it will also attach to its lowest things, to its most negative things, to its neurotic things. It will attach to those things too. So we need to understand the ego can be fed, and the ego needs to be fed better food. We can't starve the ego to the point that it's going to go away. It doesn't work that way. You know, the ego will continue to rise up in so many different ways and fashions and become psychosomatic illnesses and things like that. It's so powerful. But what we can do is we can reconstruct ourselves. We can we can change our persona. And that's what takes work. That's the change. That's what the human being is capable of doing. That's why this realm here, that what this realm represents is change. And how do we direct the change is through the Dharma teachings. We can do it through all different kinds of things that we go to school to learn to do, and we can become criminals, we can become good people, we can do all kinds of things through this ability to change. But our highest level of change is the Dharma teachings, the teaching of the way, the teaching of virtue. So this is what the Buddha in this realm, this human realm, is signifying. The Buddha is holding a bowl, and in the bowl has Dharma nectar, the nectar of the Dharma, the nectar of this way of virtue. So it's teaching us this virtue. So this Buddha, so we're teaching ourselves, we're recognizing that we can be virtuous beings. And we have this system in order to do it. So the Buddha is representing that system, what that mind of the Buddha is, this supra being. So as we go through that, we're going through all these different stages of being human beings, you know, learning and the teaching and wandering and playing music and moving along in the boats along the waterways and so on, and even flying in the sky. You know, that as we get to be, you know, bodhisattva level and so on, you know, that we're maybe not literally flying in the sky. At least I haven't been able to do that. Maybe somebody can, but I haven't seen it myself. But figuratively, I certainly have. And we have to drop the idea that we have to do everything with our hands and with our feet and with our bodies, you know, and even with our intellect. If I think this, I can make this happen and so on. Is there a spirituality to this? Is there a spirituality that becomes a metaphor for this flying? That we lose the notion of time. We lose the notion of location. That we become that penetrating vibration that has no place or time to it. So, as a human being, this is what we can do. So, this is the human condition of being presented with all these possibilities and then harnessing those possibilities, following those for the sake of virtue. So here you see that here's the Buddha who has the bowl of nectar, the Dharma nectar, in his left hand. And here, I know it might be hard to see, but here are his students. Here are his followers who they themselves become Buddha. So these are the three higher realms. These are the three higher realms. So in the Bardo Toda, that when we give up our physical body, our intellectual body, we become pure spirit, that we go into the Bardo of reality. And in this Bardo of reality, do we want to be reborn in these higher realms? Do we are we prepared to remain in the Bardo of reality? So every meditation that we do is a rehearsal for this. So when we go through our meditation and we rise up out of the meditation, are we in this higher realms? Are we in this higher realms? Do we begin to think of ourselves as a Deva? Do we begin to think of ourselves as a Titan? Do we begin to think of ourselves as a human being? If we think of ourselves as a Deva, we've kind of missed the point, and now we become prideful of our meditation abilities. We start thinking, oh, I'm so great. I'm such a spiritual person. This is wonderful. I can just sit here in my meditation room all the time and just be so happy. If I'm here in the jealous God realm, in the Titan realm, oh, I have so many students. Oh, I can do so many wonderful things for these people and everything, and they're making me rich, and I can go out and buy myself a new Rolls Royce, and I've got all these things, and I've so many followers, and this is so magnificent. This is great, and I want more of it. Or do I think of myself as a human being who sees that I have all these possibilities of living, but I choose to be a human being who is on the path of recognizing themselves, recognizing their virtue, recognizing the non-virtue that is there as a temptation to pull us down. Those temptations usually are things that are a lot of fun. We can have a lot of fun doing those things. They feel good. They're like they give us great identity, great purpose. That we can do these non-virtuous things. So we need to recognize those as well, and we need to change that we're not going to do those things. We are going to be positive, virtuous beings. So in some civilizations, some societies, they've got names for that. In the American Indian, for example, they will call that the Lakota. That was the name. It means the human being. So the Indians that were, up in the plains and so on, and many of those came from the East. And, I'm not going to go into the story of the Indians, but they had a word for that was called the Lakota. Lakota was to be a human being. In the Jewish and the Hebrew, in the European, they talk about a mensch. In Yiddish, they talk about a mensch. Oh, this is such a human being. This is a person who helps other beings, who does good things, and so on. Oh, he's such a mensch, or she's such a mensch. She comes during the holidays and she helps everybody and does all these wonderful things. What a mensch, what a human being this person is. They've got a physical body. They can do many things. They got an intellect. They can think so many things and help in so many ways, but they also have such a big heart, like the Superman or the Superwoman. In the Tibetan tradition, they talk about a Nagpa. A Nagpa is a human being, is someone who is a layperson. They're not necessarily a monastic. They don't have to be a monastic. You don't have to be a monastic to be a holy person. You can be a holy person, be a Nagpa, and is in many ways just as powerful or more powerful than being a monastic. A monastic, you can get caught up in these other realms. You know, you get caught up as being like a Deva. You get caught up as being like a Titan. But as a human being, it's on. There's a balance there. There's a realization. There's a change that is happening that we are in control of. Any questions or comments about this?
I think something that I was taking from what you're saying that can be important, or at least important for me, is even with like some of the spiritual ideas or way of being, that it can like get wrapped up as like an ego identity in ways that might not be helpful. Like I like using myself as an example, but like I know for me sometimes I can like notice myself doing things like trying to embody this compassion, but there's still this kind of intention of like wanting approval from other people through that, or it's like another strategy, another a worldly Dharma strategy almost for me that can happen at times, almost like the spiritual materialism type idea. Seems like the motivation or intention is like a big part of it.
Correct. Yes, it's very healthy. So that's all part of the contemplation, you know, recognizing that, taking ourselves apart and putting ourselves back together again. And realizing that, you know, the ego is an essential part of who we are, but that the ego can run away with non-virtue, and non-virtue then begins to be who we are rather than the virtue. So we have to learn to control the ego.
Lance, quick question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
That was not the question. Okay.
You get another question.
Two questions. So do this six realms correspond to the poisons and the antidotes? That's kind of like what. Okay. Do this.
I'm sorry. Start that again. What did you say? Because I missed the first couple words.
Yeah. Do the six realms correspond to the poisons and the antidotes? That's what's kind of like what's going on through my mind when you're going through the realms.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. So each one of the realms is the result of one of the poisons, but we have to understand that the poisons just don't work all by themselves. They're mixed with many things. So, you know, we're looking at it one thing at a time, but that it is it is a composite of many of those things. So yes.
So the way to look at the realms would be more like a more complex and kind of like giving us the context of where to look for those poisons.
Correct.
Yeah.
Through our contemplation, you know, we can take our emotion or whatever our drive is, and keep, you know, dividing it down to get to the least common denominator of what's really driving this. Is it the ignorance? Is it it's all ignorance, really. It all can be brought down to ignorance. But then, is it desire? Is it hatred? Is it greed? Is it jealousy? You know, so yes. And this requires time and space to be able to do this, to be honest about it. You know, we need to be able to commit to the process of what we call meditation, as broad word of meditation, which means just giving yourself an isolation for a piece of, for a part of time where we're able to get objective, to be able to see ourselves from an objective point of view, and a safety point of view, where we, we can really get kind of naked and see, what our psychology is, what we're thinking about, to develop the quietude. So that these are the stages of meditation. So is the framework on which we do this. What we think about during that framework is part of what we're doing right now, because you have to have thoughts to go with the contemplation. So what are the thoughts going to be? Is it going to be of the system to be able to recognize the virtue and the non-virtue? Or is it going to be just all this random stuff, that we have no control over? So we're learning to control our mind by this kind of illustration of the six realms.
Thank you. Thank you.
Lance, this is Zara. I had a follow-up question. And I'm sorry, I have a eye issue right now. That's why I'm off camera. You mentioned, I'm just taking notes as you're talking, and one of the technical questions I had when you were going over the Deva realm, and you were saying, what is your gift? The gift you give out to others. So just in relation to it from a practical point, as like Matthew was describing, like relating it back to each of us. So it is right for us to, if we know our purpose or feel like within us what our gifts are, or the things that are significant, we should be doing those things, but we should be ensuring we're doing them from a place of non-attachment and compassion. Like we're purposeful, intentional, that like, so like you use the example, if you're a piano player or an artist or a poet, can you still transcend and use your gifts in a positive way while also being non-attached and transcending? So like for example, I feel very strongly about my passion and purpose through the work I do, and I'm still cultivating that. And that's why I'm trying to connect what you said, because I feel like I have a good sense of self, like what is easier for me than others, right? And that I want to share that out, but without it being attached to ego, the need to be, I'm going to get attention for this action, the thing that's easier for me. I don't happen to be a good piano player, Lance, but if I was, I wouldn't want to do it because I got an Instagram follow. I would want to do it because it made other people smile and it brought joy to their hearts just from that.
So the mode in which we do these things is the mode of Bodhicitta. So this is Bodhicitta, and we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but Bodhicitta is the way in which we engage with all of this. This is in the heart center. This is the true nature. This is the characterization of the true nature of all the enlightened ones. Bodhicitta, loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity. So the equanimity speaks to what you're asking about right now, because whether I'm doing a good job or not, as a musician or as a writer, or whether somebody is receiving this in the way that I might like them to receive it, or they're not receiving it, I'm going to remain equal with all of that. It's not going to upset me. It's not going to upset that mind. That meditative mind is not upset by whether it's accepted or not, whether it's accepted or rejected, whether there's pleasure or pain. It doesn't matter. Whether there's hope or fear, whether there's grasping or losing, whether there's acceptance or rejection, whether there is meditation or post-meditation. It's all equal. It's all the same. So that's a very important part of the bodhicitta, of not being affected by those things. The Buddha sees all the suffering. The Buddha sees all the causes of the suffering. And the Buddha sees all the results of overcoming the suffering or the manifestation of the suffering, but sees it in a way that is unaffected. The Buddha is unaffected by these things. The Buddha is, of course, the embodiment of the goodness, of the virtue, but also recognizing the duality, recognizing the phenomenal nature, but not being affected by it. So that's part of bodhicitta. So I hope that answers the question. But when you asked that question, that's what I thought of. That's what made me, say that it's the equanimity, that we're unaffected by whether, if I'm playing the music, that, if they get it, that's great, but I'm sending it out with my love.
Yeah, that's mainly what I was asking, and that so it's the intention, the action, and I'm not attached. I'm calm regardless of the consequence because the place it came from within me was from a positive place to push that out. And then here's a second question for you, just in relation to us being more practical. We should be fulfilling, if we know within us we have these skills, we should share them out. Like we have positive skills. Do you have any guidance on that? Like we have useful, positive skills that would help others, but we're holding them back because of fear or some other thing. Should we, I guess, what is your thoughts on that, Lance?
I think we're not working in a vacuum. I think that we are working and developing a society within a society, that our society is the Sangha. So we're people of like mind who have similar values and so on. And now we're developing this language in which we can communicate with each other and these thoughts like you were just talking about right now. And we start saying, well, how can we help each other? And then we start looking at it in even a grander way of, well, how are we going to sustain this for our children? How are we going to change the world? How are we going to take better care of the earth and so on like that? So it kind of grows on its own when people come together like this. And so we're not working in a vacuum just ourselves. We have to open ourselves up to the community. And I think that takes effort. Just like right now, to have this conversation, I'm giving some kind of a lecture, but at the same time, I want you to know that I'm always ready to have a discussion. It's not something that I'm going to say, oh, you got to listen to me, and that's all you got to do. No, it's a discussion, because more is learned, more is absorbed through a discussion than just a plain lecture.
Thank you, Lance. That's helpful.
You're welcome. Thank you. So, my skill in being able to do this is very limited, but I think you need to hear these things, and I'm going to do my best to be able to bring them out. The invitation is there for you to tune into the ordained monks and nuns who are giving really great teachings and so on, and those that I have sat in many, many, many hours and days, etc., in retreats and so on. And a lot of that is how I have whatever genuineness I have about these things comes by way of that as well. So the invitation is for you to do that, because you will get even more stuff out of those kinds of engagements than you will just with what we're doing right here. So, but nevertheless, I continue to do this because this is better than nothing, is the way I look at it. And at some point, you may change and say, oh, I really want to listen to the lamas who are talking about this, that, or the other thing. That you'll take up these teachings yourself by proper gurus, and either in person or online or maybe in books. That there's so many books. I mean, I've read so many books. I got all kinds of books here, and that's part of the process of the way in which we are doing this training. We're hearing things and we're reading things, we're processing things. So so I'm here to demonstrate, to give you permission to say, here, this is what you have available to you. And perhaps then you will engage in your own daily practice and recognize your true nature. So it's not a vicarious experience. You can't think your way into it. You have to experience your way into it. So it's done through virtue, it's done through wholesomeness, it's done through holiness, it's done through, the notion of sacredness. So it goes through stages. And the stages become a holon. You know what a holon is? A holon is characterized by, let's say you've got 3 circles or 3 spheres, or four spheres, might be, it doesn't matter, but 4 spheres. And the spheres by themselves are completely intact and so on and unique. But then if you intersect those spheres with each other, and it comes to a point in the center where the center is part of each one of those 4 spheres, then that's an example of a holon. That the center is the holon, where the intersection of these 4 spheres has come together and so on. So to be able to recognize all these teachings, to be able to recognize all this practice and everything as becoming a holistic experience of seeing all the phenomenal nature, seeing all this spirituality all coming together as one. Okay. Anybody else got a question or comment? Okay. I'm going to put the screen share back up, and I want to talk about something that with human beings, we were talking about their suffering is in their desire. That they want to have this life. They're grasping at this life. They're grasping at a body. They're grasping at an identity and so on. So the definition of a sentient being is one who has a birth, has sickness or injury, susceptible to sickness or injury, who suffers from old age and suffers from death. So all sentient beings have those 4 aspects to their being manifest. They're born, they get sick or injured, they're susceptible to inputs and so on. They deteriorate over time, they decay, they get old, and that they cease to exist in the way that they stop respiration. They stop living, they stop breathing, their whatever heart they have stops beating and so on, like that, death. So that's a general description of sentient beings. So animals fit into that description, and insects fit into that description, and many things that we don't see in the atmosphere or below the ground we don't see fit into those into that description, and so on. But to focus on a human being, there's 4 more qualities or aspects of suffering that are special to human beings that the other sentient beings don't have. And one of those things is the suffering of not being with those that you love. That we have this sense of community, sense of family, and we want to be with those who make us happy or help us to be happy, to be able to share. It's a natural state for human beings. And if we don't have that relationship with those beings and so on, there's suffering. There's a yearning to want to be with those beings. There's a sadness, there's a sorrow. So to say that this is absolute, would be false. Does everybody have this kind of thing? There are those people that like to go off by themselves and live in the woods and so on, and they're perfectly content to do that. Maybe for a space and time, that's what they need to do. But we're talking about in a general sense here. So one suffering is the suffering of not being with the ones that you love. The next suffering of human beings would be the suffering of being with those that you don't want to be with. That maybe you're caught into a situation that you don't want to be in. Maybe you're in some kind of prison, you've been incarcerated, maybe you've gone to a cocktail party, and you don't know anybody there, and the people that are there don't seem to be your natural kind of friends, and the 2 hours or so that you're at this cocktail party seems like an eternity, and maybe we've all kind of shared that kind of an experience. Or maybe it's being in it's some other kind of an event, a work event, or so many different ways that you can think about being with those that you don't like, and being in such a feeling of suffering. So that's a purely human kind of an experience. So another of the 4 things, the 4 human sufferings, is to not have what you want. That you have this yearning that you want these things, these physical things, or these intellectual things, a particular job or something like that, or a particular car, a particular spouse. You want these things, and you're not able to get these things. So you're having the suffering of this yearning, the suffering of not getting what you want. And it feeds on your ego, it pulls on your ego, and then your ego has to rationalize, oh, I don't really need those things. I'm fine without it. I can be miserable and be happy and miserable from the point of view of the ego. And some people just are denying themselves things all the time, because they don't feel that they're worthy of having things. So not getting what you want is the third. And then the fourth one is getting what you want, but now you have to protect it. Now you have to keep it from harm. Now you have to continually sustain it. You have to maintain it. So you get the house that you want, and you didn't realize, but that comes with $600 a month gas and electric bills. And the insurance now is, thousands of dollars a year, when it used to be a few $100s a year when you were living in an apartment or something. So we see that there are these hidden sufferings in the things that we have and we're trying to keep. So these are 4 human sufferings: the suffering of not getting what you want, the suffering of having to protect that which you have, the suffering of not being with the ones you love, and the suffering of being with those that you don't like, that you don't want to be with. So these are human things in here. And so once again, as a human being, we need to be able to recognize these, and we need to be able to put these into a balance. We need to learn how to navigate. If you can see this image here, where I'm using my cursor here, that here are the waters of our lifetime, and here we are in these boats, and we have to navigate these waters. We have to go through the rough periods, we have to go through the shallow periods, we have to sometimes have a pilot, sometimes we can be the pilot, but then the point is that we're going through these changes that we have to navigate. So these are, again, this is the 3 higher realms that we go through. So if anyone has a question now, otherwise we're going to take a short break at this point and come back. Anybody have anything to add to the conversation?
Lance, I just wanted to clarify just for my notes. You said the suffering and the image, suffering of wanting, like wanting things, suffering of protecting what you've gotten, the suffering of being around others that may agitate us. And then what was the last one?
Not being with the ones you love.
Okay, yeah, thank you. I knew it was one word off. Okay, thank you.
Does that make sense? I mean, can you see that?
Oh yeah, 100%. That's like that's everything. That explains everything. Yeah, it's very simple.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So it's about 10:30. Let's take a short break. We can take a half-hour break if you want, or we can take a 15, 20-minute break. Does anybody have what do you think? A half-hour break? Anybody want to take a half-hour break? Anybody want to take a 20-minute break? No break at all.
I'm fine with any of it, to be honest.
Okay. Well, I would like to save time for more talk and more practice when we come back from the break. So if we can take a 20-minute break, I think would be wonderful. So if we can come back at 10 minutes to the hour, wherever you might be. Is that okay?
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, so see you
That
10
works.
minutes to the hour, 20 minutes from now. Thank you. Thank you all for coming back. I appreciate it. And so this next round, we're going to talk about, we're going to begin the conversation with the stages of meditation. So this is a practical experience, or a practical way of developing your practice and so on. So this is the very same practice that all the meditation practitioners in the monasteries use, and many of the lay people use, and so on. So there's been many books written about this. It is a ordered sequence of things to do, and so we've alluded to this several times in our conversations. So now we're going to get a little bit more serious about following the directions. I did send an attachment a couple days ago, if you printed it out, called Stages of Meditation Practice. So if it's a 1 page, which is what we're going to talk about today. So if you've got that, that'd be great. If not, I'll be talking about it. Please take notes. So I hope that maybe you're sitting on the floor, or you can sit on the floor when it comes time to meditate, but at the very least that you keep your back straight. And we'll go over the 7-point posture of Varanchana in a moment. So we begin by reciting our opening prayers, which we did earlier. So we don't need to recite those again. But But if you have broken the mindfulness of those prayers, then you should repeat those prayers again. At least the short refuge prayer and the four immeasurables, to maintain our state of mind, our one-pointed mindfulness of the practice. So then, having done that, then our second point is to recite the four thoughts that turn the mind to the Dharma. So this is something that we've been talking about in Buddhism 101, and I'm going to screen share this. So we're going to recite precious human life. The freedoms and advantages so extremely difficult to obtain accomplish the purpose of human life. If one does not achieve benefit from this now, how could this opportunity come again? Oh, this kind of leisure and endowment is supremely difficult to obtain. When one obtains a body which is easily lost, do not waste it meaninglessly, but rather use it to attain ultimate liberation, joyous result. So now contemplate the meaning of precious human life. You can read this over to yourself again quietly, and consider the meaning, how you relate to precious human life. Next is impermanence. Ka. No matter what has been done, nothing benefits at the time of death. Worldly activities, yes, they are lies. Ka. The 8 worldly dharmas are like a painted rainbow. Think you can put your trust in them? In the certainty of death, and knowing that nothing remains long, quickly accomplish liberation. Impermanence makes departure certain, like the shadow of the setting sun. Abandoning laziness and indifference, blaze like fire in fierce diligence. This life is impermanent, like clouds in the autumn sky. Birth and death migrators are the same as actors in a play or a dance. The life of beings is like lightning in the sky, like water falling from a steep mountain cliff. It departs quickly, quickly. The nature of all phenomena is impermanence. Death is a certainty to all who are born. Death can descend any time like a drop of morning dew on a blade of grass. Quick, it is time to make effort for the essence of the Dharma. Contemplate impermanence. Next is the suffering of samsara. Consider the suffering of beings in the 6 realms of samsara. Doing so, great fear and dread arise in the heart. In the 3 lower realms, and even in the 3 higher ones, there is not an instant of absolute happiness. I will avoid the root cause of my samsaric existence and practice the excellent path of peace to enlightenment. Contemplate the meaning of the suffering of samsara. Karma, cause and result. Even if one were a king at the time of death, one's possessions, enjoyments, friends, and retinue will not follow. But wherever that sentient being goes, his karma follows after him like a shadow. The fruits of one's positive karma is happiness. Suffering is the fruit of negative karma. The inexorable karmic causation is the mode of abiding in all dharmas. Henceforth, practice the Dharma by distinguishing between what should be practiced and what should be given up. Contemplate. Okay. So now, that was all part of remembering. The opening prayers and the 4 thoughts that turn the mind to the Dharma are remembering why we are doing this, what it is that we're about to do. And then now we're going to embark on how to do it. So these are the stages of meditation where we begin. So first we have to understand the method of bodhicitta. Bodhicitta, the holy enlightened mind, loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity. So this is the mode in which we live, in which we carry out our daily chores, all the things that we do with bodhicitta. We do this for the benefit of the enlightenment of all sentient beings. And this is the hallmark of the bodhisattva, of being the bodhisattva. So being on the bodhicitta path is the path to being a bodhisattva, a holy enlightened being. And a holy enlightened being then gives way to become Buddha. So the stages of meditation practice. So we need to meditate on loving kindness. What is loving kindness? How do we develop loving kindness? What does this mean? So we use the example of the mother. And in many of our prayers, we always begin by saying, may all mothers sentient beings, or all mothers sentient beings. So to develop our mindfulness of all beings as being like our mother is very important, because there are so many beings who have unwholesomeness. They do non-virtuous deeds. They want to do us harm or other people harm. And if it was our mother doing those things, we would have loving kindness for her. We would try and talk to our mother. We would try and settle our mother down. We would try and help her and get her to recognize what it is that she is doing, what non-virtues she is doing. So we would do that for our mother, regardless of what she does. But we need to recognize all other beings in the same way. If we make excuses to say, oh, well, that guy over there, he's got a gun in his hand, and I can't think of him like my mother, he's worse than I am, he's worse than my mother, that flies in the face of peace. That flies in the face of equanimity. That flies in the face of seeing all beings equally. So we need a mechanism, we need a way to be able to train ourselves to be able to recognize all beings as our mother. We don't know if these beings were our mother in past lives. We don't know exactly what our past lives were. We may come to know that, but we can look at what history has shown us. We can look at what the present day has shown us, all the different possibilities that we have in being a human being, ways in which we live and so on. So all those things we are part of. It's all part of our indestructible nature, that we are interconnected with all of this in a physical way, in an intellectual way, and particularly in a spiritual way, this vibration that runs through us. So through just looking at what is presented to us, what we appear to see is examples of what it is to be a human being, what it is to be our mother. So to think about our mother and the loving kindness that she has shown to us helps us to help other beings. So our mother gave birth to one's body. That's the first thing, that she gave birth to us. For 9 months, she carried us. For most of us, there's always going to be people who have different stories. It was 10 months, or it was 8 months, or they had a difficult pregnancy. There's always going to be that. And there's going to be times when people are going to say, well, my mother was not a very good mother, but my aunt raised me, or my grandmother raised me, or something like that. I was born in an orphanage, or something like that. I was given to an orphanage. There's going to be situations that are going to be out of what we might say the general norms. But we can also say that there have been those who have taken care of us, who have loved us, who have shown us the way to be able to live a good, wholesome human being life. So our mother here, we are saying, is she carried our body for 9 months in her body. She cared for us. Maybe she tried to eat better. She tried to do things for us. She caressed her belly, and she tried to keep us in a nice atmosphere, non-argumentative environment, to try and let the baby, as it was developing inside of her, to be peaceful and calm and so on. So she maybe did her best to be able to do that. So she gave birth to us. She carried us, and she gave birth to us. So by meditating on this as an example of loving kindness, that she did this, maybe you've been a mother yourself. Maybe you have thought about being a mother and what's involved in being a mother, and recognizing the love that you would give for your child, how it would be completely no concern for yourself. You would surrender all your own thoughts for the sake of your child. So this is the kind of love for the mother, the loving kindness that she's shown us as we were developing in her body and give birth to her. Then she gives birth to us, and she risks her life during this whole process. Many, many mothers have died during childbirth or during the time that they were pregnant. Some strange disease may have come, or some injury may have come, something like that. Or during the time of the birth, she had a very difficult birth, and she died as a result of that. So many of us have experienced that with our mothers, know that our mothers risked her own life for us. And she did that because of her great love, her loving kindness. So we need to extend that to all other beings, to say, well, maybe they have been mother in past life. They have been our mother in past life, or they've been somebody else's mother. Maybe now they're a man, but before they were a woman, and they had birth like this. So by being able to transpose the appearance of who we see as being hateful, as coming at us with desirous ways or jealous ways or something, to be able to look through that and to be able to say, well, this is my mother who is doing these things. This is just like my mother. There's no difference between my mother and this person that is doing this. And I need to be able to show them loving kindness, to be able to help them. Maybe there's not a whole lot I can do. Maybe it's just from my heart to their heart, there's something I can do. But maybe I can settle them down, and I can sit and I can talk with them and have them understand what negativities, what non-virtues they may be going through, what unwholesomeness they may be going through, and what the causes of that may be. So this can be an intellectual exploration of who these beings are, why they are doing these things, so on like that. So we are contemplating, we are thinking about this, and recognizing all beings as being like our mother. So the other kindness that our mother has shown has been that she taught us what to take up and what to abandon. What to take up and what to abandon. What what good things to do, the way in which we learned how to walk, the way in which we learned how to talk, the way in which we learned how to take care of ourselves, to dress ourselves, to go to the potty and so on, to be able to meet with our brothers and sisters or with other friends in the neighborhood, to be able to develop as a human being, to be able to recognize where danger might be. The classic example is to don't go up and touch the stove, the hot stove. Don't touch the oven, and so on. And to have patience with your child as they're going through all these things, and be mindful of the steps and the stairs, that they don't fall down the steps or fall up the steps or anything like that. So all these things that our mother has shown us and has cared for us and has tried to protect us is a kindness of the mother. So there's the kindness of carrying our body, the kindness of giving birth, risking her own life, the kindness of teaching us what to do, what not to do, etc. So the fourth kindness that the mother has shown us is the sacrifices, the austerities that she has had to implement in order that she may have a child, that she may raise us or our brothers and sisters, the things that she has given up. Maybe she was a young woman at the time and she had to interrupt her going to school. Maybe she was in college and had to stop, or maybe she had just finished college and she was starting a work career, but then she gets pregnant and she decides that she's going to put her career on hold for the time while she's raising her children and so on. So maybe she would like to live in a different kind of a house, but we couldn't afford the house because we now had a child that we had to care for and so on. So we're living in a more modest house, something like that. So all the different austerities. Maybe the mother realizes that in the first year, the first 2 years of her child's life, the mother is completely devoted to the child. They don't get any sleep. They will give their food to the child before they will eat for themselves and so on. So many different things that the mother will do in order to sacrifice her well-being for the sake of her child. So these are kindnesses of the mother. So we need to be able to think of these four kindnesses in the way that she does these. We need to look at all beings as being our mother. If they were our mother and they were doing these non-virtuous deeds, would we have the same level of bad thought about those beings if they were our mother? Or will we try and help our mother? Will we try and help these beings? So this is the method to focus on loving kindness. The four kindnesses the mother has shown. So I hope you wrote this down, or I hope that you printed out your sheet of paper that I sent to you, because now we are going to meditate on this. We are going to contemplate on this. This is part of the process of developing a daily practice. Now we're developing the method of bodhicitta. So the first of bodhicitta is loving kindness. So now if you're prepared, please sit in the proper position, keep your back straight, and contemplate the meaning of loving kindness in terms of the four kindnesses that the mother has shown. Okay. Does anybody have any questions or comments? How was that short contemplation? Was that easy to think about your mother in that way? Did it help you in being able to look at other beings in the same way as you would look at your mother, and being able to help them in the same way that you would help your mother?
Yes, Lance, it does for me. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Okay.
And for me, Lance,
Hi,
it
Alex.
reminded, and sometimes our mothers react fierce to us, and when we may be surprised, but then if we think about it, it's because mothers knows or understands that we are not doing something right, and sometimes mother's love come out in a very wrathful way, but it's so that to prevent us from doing the same things that was not serving us well. And we could, I think we could think the same way when something bad happens in the community, you know, with gun violence and all that. It probably because we were not extending enough love to those people who do those bad, you know, atrocious things. And it's like wake up call for us. Oh, we've been in some kind of delusion. We've not been paying attention. We've not been, you know, caring each other, just like mother would really care about us.
Yes,
So,
thank you.
yeah, that brought these thoughts to me.
Yes, thank you very much. Yes.
And sometimes it's too late for us to do anything. We just have to accept this wrath and adjust ourselves and move forward.
Yes. But if
Too
it's
late.
too late because our mother has passed, then we can still, through meeting other people and so on, and thinking of those as our mother, using our mother as the object of this meditation, we are correcting our own afflictive emotions, and that's what this is part of: is correcting our own afflictive emotions.
Lance, this is under because I'm just writing everything action Bodhicitta. So this is for us to like sets the mental intention, the mindfulness of then when we go out, the actual physical action, correct?
Correct.
Contemplation then is the antecedent to everyday action.
Correct.
Got it.
So then we come to the next part of Bodhicitta, which is compassion. How do we meditate on compassion? What does compassion mean to us? So again, we use the example of our mother, the object of our mother, to help us to focus on compassion. Because we look at our mother and think that she can be reborn in many of these different realms. She's going through the same cycle of rebirth that we have been examining in the 6 human realms. So how are we to know if we are recognizing some being that maybe they were our mother in a past life? We may not know that. So we have to treat every being as being like that. And that our mother, maybe she was good to have us. We're very thankful that she had us and so on. But she was good, but she may have not been that good. There may have been karma in her past that did not come up into fruition, or at least that you didn't see, that was coming up in her life, that was causing her the death that she had, or the sickness that she had, or the trials and tribulations that she had as a human being. And then when she died and went into the bardo and then was reborn again, how those past karmas come to fruition in this new life and so on. So by recognizing the suffering that our mother might be going through helps us to develop compassion. So specifically, how do we do this? So we visualize our mother in each of the 6 realms. So we visualize our mother being tortured by demons in the hell realms. Now, we haven't come to talk about this so far in our conversation. We will very soon. But nevertheless, the demons are within ourselves, that we create these demons of confusion, of hatred, of desire, etc. We create these ourselves. And these can be so powerful that we feel like that we are in a hell, that we are moving in a direction that is pulling us down into death over and over again, and painful death, very difficult death, causing death, having caused death to other people and other beings and so on. So if we saw our mother that was caught in this kind of a hell, who had done terrible things in her life, would we have forgiveness for our mother? Would we have compassion for our mother? Or would we say, oh no, you may have given me birth, you may have done all these great kindnesses for me, but you've done these terrible things now, and I'm not going to help you. I'm going to turn my back on you. Or would you say, oh, mother, I'm so sorry that you've had to experience these things. If there's something that I can do to help you, to comfort you, to help you to relieve yourself of this suffering and maybe liberate yourself from this suffering, I will do everything I can. I will be your constant companion to help you to recognize these things and do these things to liberate yourself from this suffering. Wouldn't we do that? Wouldn't we have that level of compassion for our mothers? So wouldn't we have that for other beings? Wouldn't we see other beings, regardless of where they come from, what nationality they are, what race they are, what religion they are, what kind of job they have, and so on? Wouldn't we want to have compassion for them in the same way as we do for our mother? If our mother was born into the hungry ghost realm, the hungry ghost realm is the realm of insatiable, miserable beings who are characterized by having big round bodies and short legs and short arms, a very long neck, very thin neck with a very small mouth. And they can never eat or drink enough to satisfy their big, obese kind of body and so on. So they're totally miserable because they're insatiable. And they can't get enough food. They can't get enough drink. They can't get enough power. They can't get enough knowledge. Insatiable beings who maybe you yourself have experienced that, where you've gone through a period of insatiability and you're jumping from one thing to another, not accomplishing anything because of your insatiable desire to have more things, but not being able to be satisfied. Greed is at the essence of this. If you saw your mother that was suffering from this kind of greediness, this kind of misery, would you not do something? Would you not say something? Would you not try and help your mother to relieve her of this suffering that she has? At least for a moment, to be able to bring her some food, to be able to bring her some drink, to be able to give her a teaching, something that would give her a peace of mind, if only for a moment, to recognize that she's the cause of her own suffering, to help her to recognize that. We would do that for our mother. Will we do that for other beings, to see other beings as our mother? We don't know if they're our mother in the past. We don't know if maybe they're going to be somebody's mother now, or they're going to be somebody's mother in the future. They're going to be a mother. Somebody is going to relate to them in the same way. So we need to put ourselves in that position. We need to transpose our attention into this mindfulness of this being who is suffering as our mother. The next is to visualize our mother as in the animal realm. In the animal realm, these beings are being beaten. These beings are being eaten. They are being cultivated for food. They are being in the wild. They are totally dependent upon their skills to be able to evade predators. And if they're robbed of their ability to be able to do that because they've been domesticated or something like that, it brings great harm to them. These beings, these animal beings, are very easily enslaved. They're very ignorant. They don't realize who they are. They don't realize where they are. All they know is trying to find their next meal and trying to procreate, and they don't think about much of anything else. You know, who knows what they think about? They're by human standards, you know, they would be considered to be dumb animals. But meanwhile, our mother could be born into that realm. Our mother could be so myopic that she leads an animalistic type of life. She doesn't have any control of herself, of her bodily functions, and so on. She's not able to protect herself from the elements and the weather and so on. So would we not want to help our mother and be able to protect her, to be able to show her loving kindness and compassion, and to be able to help her as an animal, to teach her a way, to be able to give her peace for a time, that she can recognize herself in this animalistic mode and be able to change her ways and take control of her life. We would do that for our mother. Will we do that for other beings? So then what if our mother was to be born into the human realm? And in the human realm, she goes through the pain of birth. She goes through sicknesses and injury. And wouldn't we help our mother then? Maybe many of us, as our mother was getting older and so on, we were helping her and doing things for her, taking her to the store, helping her up and down steps or out in and out of the car, doing all the different things that we would do. And as she goes through old age, wouldn't we do even more and more for our mother and try and help her in every way that we can? Wouldn't we want to do this in the same way for other beings who have been someone's mother, will be someone's mother? Could we transpose our attention on these beings as being our mother? Wouldn't this be a virtuous way to be? So developing compassion for our mother as being getting older, as being a human being. Wouldn't we do that? We probably did that. Wouldn't we continue to do that? And then what if our mother is born in the jealous God realm, the Demi-god realm, as a Titan, where conflict and heedless pleasure is the only thing that she is engaged in, and she's constantly trying to manipulate people and trying to take things from people and be able to dominate other people and so on. Would we not want to interact with our mother in that situation and be able to explain to her and show her how she is causing all this harm to other beings? So as we talked about before, that we would provide our mother with a shield from the arrows of constantly being in conflict with other beings, and then the sword of knowledge, of wisdom, to be able to cut through her ignorance, her unawareness of her non-virtue of what it is that she is doing. Wouldn't we do that for our mother to help our mother? So wouldn't we do that for other beings, to help other beings? Another way of showing compassion for beings. And the last one here is what if our mother was born into the God realm, into the Deva realm, where she has pride in her selfish pleasures and unaware that she is going to have a precipitous fall that is going to put her back into the lower realms, maybe into the hell realms, maybe into the hungry ghost realm, into the animal realm, depending on what deeds she did or what she didn't do in the God realm. Because they were indirectly, the gods are indirectly responsible for the suffering of many beings when they were being beseeched by ordinary beings to say, oh, can you help with your great wisdom, can you help with your great power, can you help? But the gods turned their backs, weren't paying attention to the suffering of beings. So maybe those beings that were being requested to help, they died. Maybe they were killed. Maybe they got sick. Maybe different things happened to them that were very harmful and so on. So in an indirect way, they were responsible for these things. So if we saw our mother in that situation, would we not try and do something to help our mother? If other beings are acting this way, they're being haughty, they're being arrogant, they're being like selfish gods, would we not want to do something to help them? We may not know exactly what it is to do at this point, but we would have compassion for them. In all these 6 realms, we would have compassion. We may not know the exact thing to happen to cure these beings of their suffering, but we have compassion for them. We are sending compassion, love from our heart to their heart at the very least. If there's something that we can do to touch them, to hold them, to be able to explain to them where they are, what they are doing, we would do any of those things for our mother. Will we do them for these beings? So this is the method to meditate on compassion, to visualize our mother in these 6 realms. And when we are confronted with a situation of people who are suffering or causing harm to other beings, that we immediately think of this compassion that we have for them in terms of being our mother. So now we will contemplate on the meaning of compassion as method for our mothers. Any questions? Okay. So now we're learning the method to visualize and to stabilize bodhicitta, loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity. So now we come to joy. And joy is something that we need to recognize within ourselves, that we have joy for ourselves, that we are alive, that we are a human being, that we're not born a non-virtuous being, that we're not leading non-virtuous lives, that we're not born an animal, we're not born in the hell realms. We have joy for ourselves in this life. But we have empathetic joy for other beings, to see that they are human beings, that they have these potentials, they have this possibility of being able to do all these good things. May all beings have happiness that is free from suffering. And may they sustain the happiness that is free from suffering. May we recognize this joy. Sometimes we have to turn this joy on in ourselves. There's many people who always are looking at the glass of water as being half full. Some people are looking at it as being half empty. Those who are looking at it as being half empty always have some kind of a defeatist attitude. They always say, oh, there's not enough here for me. This isn't good enough. And there must be more, but I'm not qualified to be able to get it. They're always dissatisfied with things because they don't feel as though there's enough available for them to satisfy what they want. But then those who are half full, they say, oh, I've accomplished this. This is great. I may have some more things to do, but I've done this already. I've accomplished this. I can go forward. I know how to move forward and so on. I know how to be joyous and to be able to show that in life. When you walk into a room with people, are you bringing joy with you? Are you bringing unjoyfulness? Are you bringing misery with you? How is it that other people are seeing you? How do you want them to see you? Do you want to see them as being joyous? Or do you want them to see you as being joyous? Or do you want them to see you being miserable? You know, many of us have different ailments. We have physical ailments, we have intellectual ailments, and so on like that. But when we are joyous and we accept what we have and say, well, I'm not perfect, I've got this situation, but it's this is this life. Maybe it's I got a cold, maybe it's only going to last a week, but maybe it's something else and it's going to last a very long time. Some people are born deaf. Some people are born blind. Some people are born with other different kinds of infirmities and handicaps and so on. And sometimes these people are the most happiest people you'll meet, the most joyous people you'll meet. You know, the people that have everything, you know, they're so sullen and their backs are always hunched over and so on, and they feel like they don't have enough and they're miserable people and you don't want to be with them. They might have everything that they could possibly want, but they're totally miserable. So to be able to recognize joy, empathetic joy, not sympathetic joy, but empathetic joy. Empathetic joy means that you see yourself in those other beings and that you are letting them see you as you are and not trying to hide it, camouflage it, make it something that it's not, fabricate a falseness to it, a genuineness. So this meditating on empathetic joy means looking at yourself and saying, how am I presenting myself? How am I radiating my presence, my being? Is it pure? Is it virtuous? Is it happy? Is it miserable? Is it sorrowful? Is it unhappy? So take a couple moments and contemplate empathetic joy. Okay. Any questions about empathetic joy?
These contemplations we're doing, are these on a 1 minute interval on your app? You're doing for like about a minute for each contemplation?
3 minutes.
3 minutes, okay.
But that's, you can use whatever you want.
It was so joyful, it went by so fast.
Yes. Yes.
Lance, I'm still maybe a little bit confused, like the difference between sympathetic and empathetic. You could like explain more what it entails for
Yes.
us.
Sympathetic implies that you have pity for somebody
Mm.
and that you are not in the same category as they are. And you have pity for them, but thank goodness I'm not like that.
Mm.
Empathetic joy, you see them, you say, oh, I know that suffering that they're going through. And I want that suffering to change into happiness.
Alex, if this is helpful, like for me, because I like, work a lot with people and do like behavioral counseling and therapy. When I talk about sympathy, I tell people it's something where you can recognize and say, like Lance said, oh, I feel this way for you. Like you're like, oh, but the empathy is I've experienced it, or I feel as though I have a first person experience. So I know what you're going through, versus sympathy is I haven't been through that experience. However, I feel some way for you, like sad. So if you've experienced the loss of a loved one, I can be empathetic with you. Like, oh, that's hard, that's difficult, versus I've never experienced someone close. I could say, I'm so sorry to hear that. That would be sympathy. So it taps into, I think, a deeper level of compassion when you are able to get into empathy, because you have first person perspective and say, I know that suffering, I know that feeling firsthand.
Okay, so if we put it in other words, like sympathy is more like trying to step into others people's shoes, and empathy is more like giving our shoes to other people so they may want to step into them and feel more joy or something like that.
I'm not quite sure that's the exact delineation. I think you're closer to maybe how it feels for you to understand, because for each of us we have to find a way to understand it best. But I think the issue is empathy. Did I have that experience myself? When I see it in someone else, like homelessness, have I been homeless? Versus sympathy would be, that sucks to be homeless when you come across it. I feel that. I think that's what Lance was trying to say, like having pity and sadness when you see the condition, versus I have experienced that condition. I know that firsthand. But I like the way you framed it. It's unique, and I love the shared perspective and the diversity of how we're all sharing right now.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you both. I've come to realize that this joy really is a choice. It's a conscious choice. And it's difficult for us. It's very subtle, because we have to choose to be a happy person, and we have to change ourselves. If we have a predilection for being a morose person, a negative person, and finally to say, you know what, I'm just unhappy all the time, I'm miserable all the time, and it's just because I'm making myself this way, and I have to find a system that I can find joy in my life. And so this system here is an offering to be able to help us to do that, to make that choice, to realize our responsibility for our own joy. So I think that's an important feature of Bodhicitta, that it is a conscious thing that we do. We have the ingredients within ourselves, but have we blocked them up? Have we ignored them for all different reasons? We have to bring them out into the light, and we have to let them shine and so on. Our natural being is to be good, is to be happy, is to be free. This is the way we naturally want to be. And if given the opportunity and shown how to do this, we'll never want to go back. and we want to help other people. So the last of the four of these kindnesses of the method to meditate on bodhicitta is the equanimity. And this we talked a little bit before. We talked about the equanimity, the balance, equal is the word there, the root word equal, that all things are the same. And to be able to see that all beings, that there's no difference between me and other, that everyone is the same, that we're all the same, we have these same abilities and so on, some more than others, less than others, etc. But we all have this life and we are all human beings, so the potentials are there for that. And the equanimity within myself, that I am going to love all of them, all of you, whether you realize these things or not. The equanimity for them is to realize that on their own self, but we can't do that for them. They have to do that for themselves. We have to do it for ourselves. We have to recognize the equanimity of all beings within ourselves, as we would say that may my mind abide in equanimity towards all other beings, whether without attachment or aversion. There's going to be some beings that I really like. There are some beings that I'm really not going to like. But fundamentally, I'm going to love them the same. I'm not going to have desire for them. I'm not going to have animosity for them. There's an equanimity there, and that we want that for other beings, that we show that, we radiate that to other beings in the way that we help them through our compassion and loving kindness and joy. So these four are interconnected with each other. These four things are bodhicitta, the wholly enlightened mind. Loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity. I cannot, repeat this enough. This is something that should become part of who you are. You should be the embodiment of bodhicitta. That's what you're working for. When we do Om Ahong, that we want to be everything that we do with bodhicitta. There's a passage here I just want to read. It's a little prayer. It says, this is for to gain equanimity, to gain enlightenment with bodhicitta. It says, now I lack the ability to bring happiness to these migrators. I can't bring happiness to them. I can show them the way that I have attained it, but I can't give it to them. They have to develop it themselves. So therefore, I engage my mind diligently to attain the supreme ultimate state and bring these mother beings to complete happiness. So what is this mind? Is it this little mind? Is it this big mind? It's both. They come together. We see that the mind is the mind. We make it the delineation that sometimes we're talking about spiritual mind, sometimes we're talking about intellectual mind. But in a complete human being, it's all one mind. And so that one mind becomes suffused with this bodhicitta. So therefore may I engage my mind diligently to bring these mother beings to complete ultimate happiness, so that may they realize this. Bodhicitta, the unity of emptiness and compassion. So this emptiness is phenomenal nature. And we're going to talk more about that in coming weeks. But emptiness is this point that we are all empty of a permanent, inherent nature. We're composites of many things. And that becomes a wake up to realize that our life is just this fabrication of what we have created for ourselves. We've either created this happiness or we've created this suffering, or whatever is in between all of that, all this stuff, this myriad combination of things. So we have compassion for that. We have compassion for realizing that we have done this to ourselves, that we have allowed this to manifest. And we have compassion for other beings and so on, that they have done the same thing. So bodhicitta, the unity of emptiness and compassion, we realize that this is part of the human condition. And this is what we're coming to realize. This is what we're coming to see, to recognize, and so on. And then to do that, we become the Superman. And then we can become the Superman. We can become the Buddha that is awakened to all these things, but is not bound by these things. And then it says, I make effort to practice the ultimate Dharma beyond conceptual thoughts. The conceptual thoughts is our composite of being in the midst of this phenomenal nature. It's this intellectualization of trying to intellectualize the spiritual heart. But it's the beyond conceptual thoughts are the heart thoughts of where this Buddha nature is. And to be able to do that is the work of meditation. So we're learning the system. We're learning how to do this. It is a progression. So we have to do the first things first. We have to do the remembrances first. We have to do the contemplations of the intellectual stuff. And then when we exhaust that, we rest that, and then the non-conceptual rises up all by itself. Or it's revealed because all the blockages have been removed. That wisdom has already been there. And now it becomes revealed, and we begin to recognize ourselves as Buddha, as awakened.
So let's may ask you here, when we speak of bodhicitta in essence or as a result of emptiness and compassion, so to recast your words in another way, so we understand compassion, we connect to other beings, and the element of emptiness is that basically a lack of rationalization, lack of mental elaboration, lack of mental construct, that where the emptiness comes in. Trying to figure out like why emptiness is there, as essential element.
It's not something I can answer really quickly. That's a talk all by itself. But the emptiness is a concept. The emptiness is a concept that helps us to recognize that we are impermanent, that we are not permanent, that we are empty of a permanent nature, that we are relative. This is all relative. So the emptiness is showing that is a concept that is trying to encapsulate that idea that we have no true nature, that from a we talk about that we don't exist as we think we exist. We're just existing, it's a temporary existence. It's not a permanent existence. So the emptiness is a word that we use to say that it is all permeable, that none of this is stable, and so what it is that we are trying to get to is to that space of a non-conceptual mind, our big mind. And there is peace. There's no attachment. There's no clinging. There's no emotions. There's no wisdom. There's no ignorance, because we've transcended all of that, because all that stuff is human concept.
Oh, okay. Now I think I'm yes. So it's kind of along these lines, but I think it's also, so basically it adds the quality of compassion. So compassion without attachment, like, you
Yeah,
know, pure compassion, you know, has to have the emptiness element in it, because, you know, if you attach to something, you think it really exists, so you cling to that. But if you know it's a temporary illusion, then there's totally different mindset there.
exactly. Good, a very good way to express that. Yes.
Thank you.
So that's where we'll leave it for today. Does anybody have any other questions or comments? So I hope this has been helpful. And remember that this is something that is a continuing practice that we do, diligence, to do this over and over again. This is a daily practice. So we're putting this together. We've got the remembrance of our opening prayers. We've got the remembrance of the 4 thoughts that turn the mind to the Dharma. And now we're talking about the method to be able to contemplate. How do we contemplate? What do we contemplate on? Are we going to contemplate on, oh, I want a new car? Or are we going to contemplate on loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity?
Lance, I just have this is just me because I've been with you for so long, so I'm just going to be slightly selfish in this moment. And if it helps someone else, I'm happy that. So when I'm meditating now, just to put this all together cohesively so it's useful, I have monkey mind still. Like I sit down, I'm like starting like go to compassion, right? And then I'll like go to object, go to breath. So I have these very concrete things to anchor my monkey mind. So this for me would be the next step, 2.0, upping my game, if you will, saying start and then go through this very sequenced process.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I wanted to clarify. So that's
Yeah.
helpful because I'm going to make this a focus now, is to start shifting, because I do have monkey mind still a lot, even though I've been meditating and trying hard, and I am drifting, as you just described, to my day and the attachment to all the things that don't matter.
Exactly.
So thank you so much. This was such a great practice, Lance, and I've taken meticulous notes. I appreciate your time and everyone else's time today.
Well, good. Thank you. And we're going to continue this in the weeks to come, because we're going to go over what we've done and we're going to add a little bit more to it, because it's a process and we need to understand the process. And the more that we do it, the more effortless it becomes. But there's a structure there. And that's what Zara was just saying. She needs the structure. That's what she's recognizing. We need the structure to be able to do this. Otherwise, our mind's going to go in this direction, that direction, so on. We're going to say, no, I'm going to think about this. I'm going to think about bodhicitta. That's how we stabilize it. So that when you get out and you're in the car and you're doing all your stuff, bodhicitta is foremost in your mind. Okay. So unless there's another comment or questions, we'll do our dedication. So we'll go to page 21, the Jigten Sumgun prayer. Glorious, holy, venerable, precious, kind root and lineage lamas, divine assembly of yidams and assemblies of Buddhas, bodhisattvas, yogins, yoginis, and dakinis, dwelling in the 10 directions, please hear my prayer. May the virtues collected in the 3 times by myself and all beings in samsara and nirvana, and the innate word of virtue, not result in the 8 worldly concerns, the 4 causes of samsara, or rebirth as a Shravaka or Pratyeka Buddha. May all mothers, sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me and mine, obstructors who harm, misleading Moors, and the hordes of demons, experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, precious Buddhahood. By the power of this vast root of virtue, may I benefit all beings, my body, speech, and mind. May the afflictions of desire, hatred, ignorance, arrogance, and jealousy not arise in my mind. May attachments to fame, reputation, wealth, honor, and concern for this life not arise for even a moment. May my mind stream be moistened by loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta, and through that may I become a spiritual master with good qualities equal to the infinity of space. May I gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra in this very life. May the torment of suffering not arise even at the time of my death. May I not die with negative thoughts. May I not die confused by wrong view. May I not experience an untimely death. May I die joyfully and happily in the great luminosity of the mind as such and the pervading clarity of Dharmata. May I, in any case, gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra at the time of death or in the bardo. Om, Ah, Hum. Om, Ah, Hum. Om, Ah, Hum. May my body, speech, and mind become inseparable with the body, speech, and mind of all the enlightened ones for the benefit of all sentient beings. Thank you.
Thank you, Lance. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you
Lance.
very
Very
much.
informative.
Lance.
Thank you, everybody.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Love and light.
Happy Easter, everybody.
Happy Easter.
Happy Easter,
Joy,
everybody.
joy.
Okay.
Yes,
Shri bye-bye.
full of joy.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
See you
all
soon.
soon.
Monday.
Yes.
Okay, see you.
Bye.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Alex.
Yeah, it was great.
Good, thank you.